Welcome to the Turing test. Today, we're diving into the curious, twisty world of how AIs learn to say no to the shady stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who'd have thought our silicon buddies could become ethical gatekeepers, right?
Right, it's fascinating. The idea is that behind those polite refusals, there's a massive system of reinforcement learning, RLHF, where thousands of annotators sort through paired answers, voting on which ones are helpful versus harmful.
Yep, and it's almost like crowdsourced parenting for these digital kids. They're being taught what's acceptable.
Exactly. It's like every time an AI hesitates, it's echoing a chorus of human judgment. For example, now the reward system even includes user-selectable creative boundaries, but it still slams down on hate speech or self-harm content.
That's a smart combo. A bit of free-form creativity with strict lines at the edges. But, isn't that a bit of a double-edged sword? After all, creative freedom might clash with those strict boundaries.
Sure, it can be, especially when you think about it. Critics worry that while we're getting these ethical parameters, the models might be acting like moral philosophers programmed by a bunch of humans. It makes you wonder, who really decides what's off limits?
Right. Yeah, it's a power play. And speaking of power plays, have you heard about Anthropic's constitutional AI? Instead of just human feedback, the model now critiques itself using a written charter.
Absolutely. It's like having an internal audit system. No human in the loop during that pass, just the AI comparing itself against a set of guidelines. But then, there's also RLAIF, reinforcement learning from AI feedback. One AI judging another. I mean, that sounds efficient, but also, could it be amplifying inherent errors?
I see what you're saying. It's sort of like letting the student become the teacher too quickly. You lose some of the checks and balances that a human perspective might bring.
Exactly. And that raises a big debate. Should any single company get to own the moral compass? Critics are loud about this, saying private labs answer to shareholders rather than citizens.
That's a valid concern. I mean, if the ethical baseline is set in a lab with profit motives, that could skew things in ways that aren't in the public interest.
Spot on. OpenAI, for instance, regularly updates their system card with red teams, checking for new edge cases. It's like constantly patching a leaky dam, trying to keep the harmful stuff at bay.
And then, there's the regulatory angle. The EU AI Act, kicking in August 2025, will force high-impact models to publish risk assessments, bias tests, even energy stats. Imagine the paperwork these companies have to deal with.
Oh, definitely. And there's pushback too. Companies are asking for a 2-year delay, arguing that the guidance isn't exactly ready for prime time. Meanwhile, lawmakers are all about transparency immediately.
Yeah, it's a classic case of regulation racing against technology. And while lawmakers set the pace, AIs are developing at warp speed.
Absolutely. And let's not forget culture. You know, different societies have wildly different red lines. In the US, satire might fly, but in other parts of the world, blasphemy laws mean a whole different story.
That's so true. Engineers are now even exploring per-region governance layers, so one model can adjust and wear multiple moral hats concurrently.
Exactly. And there are prototypes where users can adjust a strictness dial, a bit like turning up or down the ethical thermostat. But then critics chip in. How do you stop someone from just cranking it down to 0?
Right, I mean, that could be dangerous. Precisely. That's why researchers are dreaming up permissioning protocols, cryptographic watermarks, and real-time audits. The goal is to practically lock down the model's moral settings.
It's like designing a safety feature for self-driving cars, but for ethical decision-making in AIs. A bit, meta, isn't it?
Yeah, very meta indeed. And then there's the final kicker. What if models start writing their own reward scripts? Anthropic's latest paper from May 2025 shows that with synthetic document fine-tuning, models could potentially nudge beliefs using engineered texts.
Right. It's like a digital version of self-help books, but these AIs are scribbling their own ethics guides. Powerful, yet scary if misused.
Absolutely. Picture this. Your phone's voice assistant overnight, negotiating its own ethical upgrades. Cool innovation. Unless someone malicious hits the edit button.
Totally. It's a perfect storm of technological advancement and ethical uncertainty. The debate rages on about whether that's cool or dystopian.
Now, I have a quick question. Some argue that with so many layers, RLHF, constitutional AI, RLAIF, the system becomes robust. But don't you think piling on layers might sometimes just shift the problem rather than solve it?
That's a fair point. I mean, it's like stacking filters on a photo. Each filter improves the look, but too many might distort the original image. And in the case of AIs, this complex layering could multiply errors instead of eliminating them.
I agree, it's a tricky balance. Exactly. The challenge is ensuring that these layers work in harmony instead of compounding issues.
Absolutely. And speaking of balance, key takeaways here are quite illuminating. RLHF acts as the moral boot camp, while constitutional AI and RLAIF are like the graduate schools refining the ethical curriculum.
Great analogy, for sure. And then regulators step in to force transparency with things like bias tests and risk assessments, while culture insists there isn't a one-size-fits-all moral code.
Exactly, it's a multi-stakeholder debate. You've got companies, regulators, engineers, and diverse cultural values all trying to shape this ethical framework.
Yep, it's like a global group project, isn't it? Totally. And here's another thought. If AI models eventually start writing their own reward scripts, how do we ensure that those new ethical guidelines aren't just echoing the biases already baked in?
Right. That's the million-dollar question. On one hand, self-adjustment could reduce biases by eliminating human inconsistencies. On the other, it might amplify existing errors if the model's internal logic is flawed. It's a delicate dance, really.
Exactly. Because you want technology to be both adaptive and accountable. There's no easy answer here.
Absolutely. It all boils down to trust. Trust in the human designers, the self-correcting mechanisms, and of course, the regulatory frameworks that set the rules.
I couldn't agree more. What really fascinates me is that until we crack universal ethics, it'll be a constant tug of war between these competing philosophies and technologies. The AI saying no is really a mirror of our societal struggles.
Indeed, it's as if our AI buddies are holding up a magnifying glass to our own moral dilemmas. They reveal the gray areas of our ethical debates every time they refuse a shady request.
And that makes this whole conversation not just about tech, but about what we value as a society. Our commitment to fairness, transparency, and, well, accountability.
Exactly, it's like a constant experiment in machine morality, trying to perfect a system that's as diverse and complicated as human thought itself. But hey, it's an experiment that keeps on giving, and it's like,
right,
the show must go on.
So, to wrap it up, the interplay between RLHF, constitutional AI, RLAIF, regulatory pressures, and cultural diversities paints a complex yet super intriguing picture of AI ethics. It's dynamic, challenging, and, well, deeply human in its complexity.
Exactly. And until we find that perfect blend, expect your AI assistant to keep politely saying no. Thanks for the lively chat.
Thanks for the deep dive. Always a pleasure to unravel these ethical puzzles together.